Good evening, producer Susan. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jersey Joe. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Hey, I was working on, hopefully I can fit in everything we didn't get to last week. We had three or four things, including the taxpayer relief shot. So hopefully we can make up and get a bunch of stuff in. But I've got, as usual, I got some new stuff. And let me kind of give you an overview of what we're going to try to get to today. Um, First of all, our quote of the day is from physicist Richard Feynman. Never heard of him?
Yep.
Okay. Stupidest thing I've heard all week is how a college professor claims that how you stock and organize your pantry might mean that you're a racist. Bet you didn't know that, did you?
Nope.
We'll tell you about a woman who is claiming that because a popular fast food restaurant is discriminating against vegetarians. We'll tell you about a convicted felon in Chicago who is illegally occupying a home and he changed the locks and why the police won't remove him. We'll tell you about some very, very famous people who are much smarter than you might have guessed. We'll tell you about a very dangerous substance that kills thousands of people every year, and that many people come in contact with on an almost daily basis. And the use of which is currently not regulated by any federal or state law, and where you can go to add your name to a petition to have its use banned. In our science minutes, we'll talk about three different quick things. We'll talk about what the term continental divide refers to. We'll talk to something that you brought to my attention, which is where is the highest point on Interstate 80 east of the Rocky Mountains? And how many pounds of copper ore does it take to produce 10 pounds of copper? And our taxpayer relief shot is the same one we tried to do last week from Pulaski County, Georgia, where a homeowner shoots and kills one of four armed teenagers attempting a home invasion simultaneously. So you think we can fit that in today?
Last week was the first week in our history that you weren't able to fit it all in.
I
So
know I got so wrapped up and down so many rabbit holes with Biden's budget and the debt bomb. Anyway, but we have no budget. I'm going to try to keep it a little lighter this week. All right. So physicist Richard Feynman, Nobel Award winning Feynman, he said, here's his quote. He said, "I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned." And what strikes me about that, you've heard this thing about, well, that's settled science. You can't question that. It's settled science. Whether it be climate change or something else. Have you ever heard settled science?
I don't think I've heard that term before.
Oh, trust me, Google, if when you Google the phrase settled science, and you'll find literally millions of hidden, and it's something that a lot of people, whether they be climate change fanatics or electric vehicle fanatics or whatever, it's settled science. You can't challenge that. Now, you can always challenge science. So again, his quote is, "I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned." Because if you look at the history of science, there was a time when, quote, the science said the earth was the center of the universe. And then there was a time that the sun was the center of the universe. And as we all know, neither the earth nor the sun
Yep.
or even the Milky Way none of them are the center of the universe. All right. So any thoughts before we move on to the stupidest thing I've heard all week?
Nope.
All right.
Let's get in it.
All right. There's a female professor at Loyola University, and she claims that how you stock and organize your pantry makes you a racist. Now, if you heard or seen something that's been referred to as pantry porn?
Yeah, there's a lot of TikToks and reels out there on this stuff.
Yeah, with people, they've got these big walk-in
Yeah.
pantries and everything is in glass jars and bagged and
Yeah. Who's
labeled
got
and
time for that?
they refer to it as pantry porn. Well, here's her quote on pantry porn. She said, "If you ditched cereal boxes for uniform glass containers and opted for plexiglass storage bins in your fridge, you may be engaging in," and this is a quote, "classist, racist, and sexist behaviors," she contends. She goes on, cleanliness has historically been used as a cultural gatekeeping mechanism to reinforce status distinctions based on vague understanding of niceness, i.e., nice people with nice yards and nice houses make for nice neighborhoods. What lies beneath the surface of this anti-messiness, pro-niceness stance is a history of classist, racist, and sexist social structures. So are you one of those classist, racist, and people?
I don't have time for that. I go to the grocery store, the food goes in the pantry.
Well, what do you think about her position or her claim that if you are one of those people, that makes you?
I don't think that has anything to do with class. That has to do with how much free time you have on your hands.
So you don't think it's not an expression of your classist, racist, and sexist social structure?
No, no.
Okay. So do you agree that's the stupidest thing you've heard all week?
One of them.
Okay. Now,
I actually thought the KFC thing was
well, that's next. That's next. Well, or maybe this is tied. Maybe we'll have a listener contest here. So I had this, and you're right, this could be the stupidest thing. So a woman in the UK went to a Kentucky Fried Chicken and she wanted to order a vegetarian dinner. And the guy at the counter said they don't carry any vegetarian meals because they tried it for a while and nobody was ordering them. They threw them out. So now she's claiming that KFC discriminates against vegetarians because they don't carry any vegetarian meal options.
it's in the name, people.
So which one of those two do you think wins?
Fried chicken.
So which one of those two do you think is the stupidest thing?
I believe I sent you the article on the KFC. I was like,
so you go with the woman who thinks that KFC discriminates against vegetarians because they don't stock any vegetarian meals. Okay. All right. We're going to go back to Chicago. Now, in Chicago, a woman's mother passed away, and shortly after the funeral, she hadn't sold the house, and the house was vacant. Well, a repeat felon broke into the home, changed the locks. Shortly thereafter, there was a shooting. He actually got shot, and the police came and took him to the hospital because he'd been shot inside this woman's house that he was occupying illegally. And when he got out of the hospital, he asked the police to take him back to the house, claiming he lived there. And he actually had a key to the front door because he had changed the locks. And when the woman shows up, she said, "He's trespassing. That's not his house." And you know what the police told her?
I'm not going to do anything about it.
They said it's a civil matter. You'll have to go to court to have him evicted. Can you imagine a felon is living in a house you own without your permission? He's changed the locks, and the cops say, "Nope, it's only your word that he's a trespasser. If you want him removed, you'll have to go get an eviction order." I don't know if that would happen in every city, but that's how they do it in Chicago.
It seems to be, it happened a lot. I know during the pandemic, squatters have rights, and I disagree with that. They're trespassing.
Yeah, I agree. I would wait. For me, I would wait outside, down in, I'd wait till the guy left the house and I would go in and I'd change the locks.
Yeah.
And
I would institute your castle law.
Yeah, and then I would actually hire somebody, I would actually pay somebody or say, "Hey, you want to live in this house rent free for a month?"
Mm-hmm.
And then, I'll rent you this house for $10 a month. And then if the guy tries to come back and break in, then you can have him arrested for breaking and entering. All right. So let's talk about smart celebrities. And first of all, before we talk about the celebrities themselves, let's talk about the IQ test in general. Now, there's actually two. The most common is referred to as the Stanford-Binet test. And to qualify for Mensa, which is the top 2%, you need a score of 132 or higher. And to be in the top 1%, it's 137 or higher. Now, let's talk about the test. A lot of people mistakenly think that the IQ test is a knowledge-based test. The Stanford-Binet test has nothing to do with your knowledge base. You can be a high school dropout and still score 150 on the test because it's all about logic. It's all for instance, they'll give you a sequence of numbers like 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, etc., and then say, what is the next number in the sequence? You don't have to know what year Columbus discovered America. You don't have to know who the 36th president of the United States was. You don't have to know how many branches of government we have. It has nothing. You can pass you can achieve a genius score on the Stanford-Binet IQ test without ever reading a book. Were you aware of that or not?
Yes, I was. Yep.
Oh, okay. So again,
Because
it is not
IQ tests are administered at any age, and they are geared towards each age, whether
right.
you're a 6-year-old or a 60-year-old.
Yeah, they'll give you geometric shapes and, and they'll show 5 different pictures of that shape in different, turned around, spun left, spun right, upside down, whatever. And they'll ask you, but one one of the 5 shapes is actually not the same as the others, which are the same shape, just shown in a different orientation. And they'll simply ask you which one of these 5 shapes is not the same as the other 4. All 5 pictures are different, but 4 of the 5 are the same shape, just shown, spun around in different orientation. Or again, it's number, or they'll show you, they'll name 5 things and say, banana, monkey, tiger, spider, which one of these is different than the others and which one doesn't belong. So anyway, so now that we've established, and by the way, the reason the gap between the top 2%, which is 132 on the Stanford Binet, and 137, is that the bell curve is not linear. Excuse me, it is not a linear. If you look at the distribution of intellects, it's a bell curve. So once you get out on the very, very far right edge of the bell curve, a tiny movement moves you from the 98th percentile to the 99th percentile. So that's why top 2% is 132 and the top 1% is 137. So here's some very smart people that you wouldn't think were smart. Do you know who Lisa Kudrow was?
Yeah, she was on Friends.
Phoebe, right? She plays the
Yeah.
dumb waitress on Friends.
But she was the smartest of the Friends group, and she was also, I heard, she was the one who negotiated all their contracts for them.
Right. You know what
So
her
she's
IQ is?
business savvy. Nope, but I bet it was pretty high.
How about 160?
Yep, I believe it.
Reggie Jackson, the baseball player, 160,
Yep.
which is the same, by the way, as Stephen Hawking, who was also 160. Does the name Condoleezza Rice ring a bell?
Yes, she's Secretary of State, was she?
Under George Bush.
Yeah.
And this is mind-blowing. 185.
Wow.
Madonna, 140. Do you know who Mayim Bialik is?
Yes, she's Blossom, and she is also Sheldon Cooper's wife, Amy Falafera.
Amy Falafera, right. Amy Farrah on the Big Bang Theory, 163.
She's in real life a neuroscientist.
And she's a neuroscientist, right? Conan O'Brien, 160. Now, here's a pair. Bill Gates and Paul Allen, they were the co-founders of Microsoft. Bill Gates, 160. Paul Allen, 170.
Wow.
Matt Damon, the actor, 160. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the actor and former governor of California, 135. Tommy Lee Jones, 135. Ashton Kutcher, 160. Comedian and actor and composer Steve Martin. And Sylvester Stallone, Rocky, who plays a really dumb guy. What do you think Sylvester Stallone's IQ is?
I'm going to say 160.
Exactly 160. And there were a bunch of other people like Meryl Streep and a bunch of other surprising number of singers and actors. I didn't want to go on and on, but those are just some of the more better known ones, all of whom have genius IQs or better. Any of the names on that list surprise you?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Condoleezza Rice, the 185. I mean, I knew she was a very brilliant woman, but that's phenomenal.
And that's almost off the chart. I've never.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought if somebody said who do you think had an IQ of 185, I would have probably said Stephen Hawking, not Condoleezza Rice. So I mean, she had a higher IQ than Stephen Hawking. Anyway,
she I believe was the highest on the list you just rattled off.
He was, yeah, 185. Everybody else topped out at well, let's say I think Paul Allen was 170. So the second highest was Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, at 170. So in rank order, it was Condoleezza Rice, Paul Allen. We had a bunch of people at 160, and then a bunch of people 135, 140. Anyway, I want to talk about. I want people to listen very, very carefully because this is very important. There's a chemical compound known as dihydrogen monoxide, that kills literally thousands of people every year, causes billions of dollars of property damage, and its use is not regulated by any state or federal government agency. And here's just some of the things that are the result of the use of this unregulated compound, dihydrogen monoxide. Here are some. First of all, let me tell you some of the industrial processes where it's used. It's used as an industrial solvent and coolant. It's used in nuclear power plants. It's used by the U.S. Navy in propulsion systems of some of its older vessels. It's used in the production of styrofoam. It's used in the production of most canned vegetables. It is used in biological and chemical weapons manufacture. It is used in the development of genetically engineered crops and animals. It's used as a spray-on fire suppressant and retardant, and it's a byproduct of hydrocarbon combustion in furnaces and air conditioning compressor operation. And here are some of the perils associated with this chemical. Death due to accidental inhalation. By the way, dihydrogen monoxide is also known as DHMO. Death due to accidental inhalation of DHMO, even in small quantities, will kill you. Prolonged exposure to DHMO in its solid form can cause severe tissue damage. DHMO is a major component of acid rain. Gaseous DHMO can cause severe burns. It contributes to soil erosion. It leads to corrosion and oxidation of many metals, including bridges and overpasses. Contamination of electrical systems often causes short circuits in electrical equipment. Exposure to DHMO decreases the effectiveness of automobile brakes, and it is found in the biopsies of precancerous tumors and lesions. Now, based on what I just told you about DHMO, would you be willing to sign a petition calling for the banning of the use of DHMO in this country?
Based solely on the facts you just put forth, yes.
Okay, now, I happen to know you're a very bright person. You have a degree in earth sciences. And if just based upon, and you gave me a very good answer, based only on what I told you, you would absolutely be willing to sign that petition. But let me ask you a question, producer Susan, given your engineering background, what's another name for dihydrogen? What's the chemical compound for dihydrogen monoxide?
2 hydrogen molecules and 1 oxygen molecule, which is H2O, otherwise known as water.
Water, right. So everything I just told you is about water. And let's go down with the list one more time. Yes, it's used as a coolant in industrial. It's used in industrial coolant. It's used in nuclear power plants. In Navy, they had steam boilers in some of the older Navy vessels. You use it to make styrofoam. You use it when you're canning vegetables. You use it to grow genetically engineered crops and animals. You use it to suppress fires. Whenever you light a fire, water, H2O, water vapor is a byproduct of combustion.
Mm-hmm.
If you inhale water, it can kill you. It'll kill you. Solid DHMO is also known as ice. Well, if you have if your ice is in prolonged exposure,
hypothermia
and the frostbite, is water a major component of acid rain?
Yes, it is. It's probably the largest component of acid rain.
Right. And gaseous water, can it cause severe burns? Because what is gaseous
Steam.
water? Steam. Steam will burn your skin. Does it contribute to soil erosion?
Absolutely.
Does it corrode metals, bridges, and
Absolutely. Overpasses? Yep.
If you get water in electrical systems, will it cause a short circuit?
Absolutely.
If your brakes get wet, will it reduce the effectiveness of your brakes?
Absolutely.
And since the human body's 97% water, if a lab is doing a biopsy of a precancerous tumor or lesion, is there gonna be water in that tumor or lesion?
Yep, they're gonna find water.
So the point of doing this, if any of you listening to this were ready to say yes, that stuff, the use of that stuff should be banned and regulated. I just want to point out how easy it is to be manipulated by people who only tell you some of the facts. And that's why, the name of this podcast is The Situation. It's news and perspective you won't hear on TV. And what I'm trying to give you here is perspective, because context and perspective is critically important. And what I see politicians doing, it is so easy to manipulate people by only telling them what they want to hear, or it's spinning. And we've done stories like this before, because I call it the rest of the story. They'll say, "Oh, Republicans, voted against this bill to, to expand school lunches. They want, little kids to starve." No, the perspective is they don't want taxpayers to be buying lunches for parents where the father drives a BMW to work and the mom drives a Mercedes. So this thing about, so no, Republicans don't want children to starve in schools. They don't want children to go hungry, but they also don't think taxpayers should be paying for lunch for parents, for families where they live in $500,000 homes and drive luxury cars. So that's just an example of perspective. All right. Any thoughts before we move on to our earth
No,
science
I think
minute?
it's, the whole thing. Everybody's got to do their own research and their homework, and don't be caught in by mainstream media and the half the story you're hearing.
Yeah. Be a skeptic. Yeah. Be a skeptic. By the way, I read things, there's something called confirmation bias, where you want something to be true, so you just believe it. And I'll read stuff, and it's no secret I have a conservative leaning. I'm conservative by nature, and I'll read something on a conservative site, and I say, "Wow, that's probably that probably true. I could believe that, but before I repeat it or share it, I won't do that until I've actually fact checked it. Even though I want to believe it's true, I won't let my confirmation bias just immediately. I know a lot of people. I have friends who are conservative. They'll just hit share, share. They'll forward stuff to me, and it's junk. It's nonsense. So don't let your confirmation bias lull you into believing stuff that you haven't taken the time to fact check. All right.
And I'd also like to point out, on those rare occasions when you are wrong, you do call yourself out and correct yourself.
Yep. Every once in a while, I find out, I did share something or claim something that turned out not to be true, and I'll be the first to say, I told you that. I shared this with you. It wasn't true. Now, that doesn't happen a lot, but, on those rare occasions, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, I'll absolutely go back to you and say, I told you this. I shared this with you. Turns out it wasn't true. All right. Now, I think you mentioned to me one time your major in college was earth science.
Yes.
All right. Well, we have kind of 3 earth science things to talk about today. Now, I think most people have heard the term the continental divide. And I think most people think that it generally refers to the Rocky Mountains. It divides the East from the West. Well, it's close to the truth, but it's not the actual truth. The continental divide is in the Rocky Mountains, but it is not the Rocky Mountains. What it is a line that runs through the Rocky Mountains, and it's not a straight line. It's kind of a zigzag line. And what determines the location of that line is this. If rain falls on the east side of the line, that rain will eventually run downhill and find its way either into the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic Ocean.
Which
And if
the Gulf
rain
of
drops,
Mexico is part of the
I'm sorry?
Atlantic Ocean. The Gulf of Mexico is part of the Atlantic Ocean.
Gulf of Mexico is part of the Atlantic Ocean. And if rain falls on the west side of that line, that water will run down the slope to the west and eventually find its way into the Pacific Ocean. So if you look on a good map, a detailed map, you'll actually see a black line that runs from peak to peak along the Rocky Mountains, and that's actually what the continental divide is. So it is not the mountains; it is a line that runs through the mountains. Now, so any thoughts on the continental divide? Did you know that?
I did know that, and it actually extends considerably farther north from the Rockies and considerably farther south to the Rockies.
Right.
I believe it starts up in Alaska, goes down through Canada, through the United States, following the Rocky Mountain Ridge,
right,
the tallest peak, and then it goes all the way down Central America, South America, I believe on the Chile side, all the way down to the tip of South America.
I think it might stop the Panama Canal. I could be wrong, but
Well, there's the North American divide and the South American divide. I
Right.
mean, they are one continuous, depending on how you look at the Americas.
Right.
North
So,
America,
yeah,
South
so when we
America,
refer to the United States continental divide, it is
United States. Yeah.
primarily in the Rocky Mountains. Anyway, here's one you gave me. Now, Interstate 80 runs from the George Washington Bridge
Mhm.
to the Golden Gate Bridge in California, and it runs continuously along the upper Midwest. It runs through New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio. It runs just south of Chicago, Michigan, and then it crosses the Rocky Mountains in Wyoming. It doesn't go into Colorado. And of course, the highest point on Route 80 is in the Rocky Mountains. But
Mhm.
here's the trivia that you told me, which is east of the Rocky Mountains. What is the highest point on Interstate 80 east of the Rocky Mountains? And again, it's a 2,200 mile long highway. And you
Mhm.
want to tell us where the highest point on the Interstate 80 east of the Rocky Mountain occurs?
It is approximately Clearfield, Pennsylvania.
Between the towns of Clearfield and Du Bois, I
And yeah,
think.
it's halfway between Clearfield and Du Bois, in a town. What is the name of that town?
Penfield, I think.
Penfield. Yes, thank you. Penfield. Penfield's a little itty bitty tiny town halfway between Clearfield and Du Bois. So going back to your reference of the Continental Divide, anything to the east of that highest point on 80 falls, that's the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So anything rainwater, anything snow melts on the eastern side of that goes into the Chesapeake Bay. And then anything on the west of that, I believe, goes to, I want to say, ultimately the Mississippi River
Right.
Basin.
And is that the Allegheny Mountains right there at that point?
In
the Allegheny?
No, that's actually the Appalachian Mountains. The Allegheny Mountains are farther west of Pittsburgh.
Okay, so that goes through so that's the Adirondacks. And by the way, I'm surprised that high
Appalachian.
point is only, do you remember what the elevation was?
It was around 2,200 feet. It was not that tall.
2,250.
Yeah.
So it's not terribly high.
Nope.
All right. And here's one that even though you were an earth science major, you probably don't know. So now 10 pounds of pure copper, which is about the size of a lightweight bowling ball. How many pounds of copper ore do you think you have to refine to get a 10 pounds of copper?
I actually think I do know this. I want to say it's a ton, so which is 2,000 pounds.
Exactly a ton. So in other words, copper ore is only 0.5% copper, because you have to process 2,000 pounds of copper ore to get 10 pounds of copper. So it's 0.5% copper, 99.5% useless rock. Anyway,
Mhm.
so I think we're going to finish up in good time today. So,
Yep, you have about 5 minutes left.
well, good. We're going to do our taxpayer relief shot. And then again, taxpayer relief shots. This is where a good guy or a good woman with a gun shoots a thug. And because they've shot and killed the thug, that saves the taxpayers the cost of incarceration, jury trials. I think we've mentioned before, it takes $75,000 to $80,000 a year to keep a thug in jail. So if you send a guy to jail for 10 years, that's $1 million. You add in the court cost, probation expense, it's $1 million to send the thug to jail for 10 years. And here's how the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida feels about it. Let me see.
Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully you'll save taxpayers money.
And the sheriff up in Grady Judd has a little different take on that. Let's see.
But we have received information in social media that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
And that was Sheriff Grady Judge, Polk County, Florida. All right. Anyway, before we run out of time, let me see if I can get to Hawkinsville. Here we go.
Is dead, and neighbors say it happened during a home invasion.
Megan Western went to Pulaski County to tell us what she found out about that fatal shooting. It happened Tuesday evening at this home behind me on Jelk Street. That's right off of Golden Isles Parkway. Community members tell me that the violence is disheartening. Neighbors told us 14 boys tried to enter the home, 2 through the window and 2 through the front door. Neighbors say teens were armed, and as they were entering the home, one of the boys was shot. People in the community say youth violence is increasing with more kids looking to join gangs. Allison Johnson says she has 2 teenagers of her own and hopes they don't fall victim to the violence.
It's very unacceptable. Like, people get in gangs, think they cool, and then don't know the consequences they're doing or the decisions they're making. And I really just hate the fact that it's down here like that.
Now, we did reach out to the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office as well as the county coroner, and they have referred all of our questions to the GBI. They are currently handling the investigation in Pulaski County. Megan Western, 13 WMAZ News.
And so far, the victim's name has not been released or information on any charges. Sheriff Danny Brannon declined to comment or release any details on the shooting. He referred questions to the GBI, as Megan mentioned, and they have not returned our phone calls.
All right, so let me stop this. Sorry, and it was a little confusing. She didn't say 14, it was 14 boys.
Oh,
Not 14.
I was like 14. That's a lot.
No, it was 4.
That's like a mob.
No, it was 4 teens, but here's the point.
4
You've got
teens,
14,
okay.
the one that was killed was 15 years old.
Hmm.
But, you know, here's it, you've got 4 teens armed with guns. Now, you know, people are, well, we need universal background checks. We need this. Teenagers can't legally buy a gun.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, and this was Pulaski County, Georgia, but it happens in Chicago. You know, 50, you hear, we've done these things before, 50. So
happens in every
teenagers,
state.
you know, more gun laws are not going to stop thugs from getting guns, because if 4 teenagers in Georgia can get guns, they didn't buy them in a gun store, trust me. So I think we've already covered that over 1 million guns a year, about 250,000 guns a year are stolen in this country, and there's 6 million stolen guns on the street. Anyway, we're probably running out of time, so I want to thank all of you who listened to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about things I find of interest and importance. I hope you found some of those topics interesting and important as I did. And if so, I hope you continue to listen to this podcast in the weeks and months to come. By the way, if you want to see how many people have signed that petition to ban DHMO, there is actually, just Google petition to ban. There are thousands of people who have seriously signed the petition because they don't know any better. Thousands of people have signed a petition to ban DHMO. They want water to be banned. Anyway, if you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, you can find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey, J-E-R as in Roger, Z in zebra, Jerzee, jerzeejoe.com. If you want to email me with a comment, question, or suggest a topic, do that by sending me an email to joe@jerzeejoe.com. And that's all I've got. Anything else you want to add, Producer Susan?
Yeah, it was good to make up for last week, cramming it all in, and it was good to be able to catch back up and get in the rest of the stories.
All right. Talk to you next week, Producer Sue. Take care.
Great. Have a good week, Jerzee Joe.
Bye-bye.